Hey guys, and welcome back once again to Yugioh South. I am back with my trusty, sexy linework IP Masquerena mat with Ecclesia on the underside, and my trusty deck box for the deck that I've been playing with for the last couple of weeks. Just side note, this flip and tray case is pretty solid. I really like them. Yeah, it's the first time using them, but they're really solid. So first up, we obviously have the Gucci, right? We've got the full set of 7 attribute dice and the attribute spell and trap dice, because it's Yu-Gi-Oh, so you have to have those. And now we have the magic deck that I've been playing for a while. Now, I need to preface this. I think a lot of my deck profiles on the channel these days are going to be more just deck profiles of what I've been using, and like I'll talk a little bit about matchups and how it's been doing, but I don't want to really go in too much into detail with like my record and stuff, because it's not quite the same as South Africa, where going X and O to locals is super easy. In fact, with this deck, I went to locals, I went to a remote locals, and I went to 2, and then I played a bunch of extravaganza events over the weekend, and that didn't go so well. But I still like the deck, and I still think the deck is really good at what it does, especially when it like is allowed to do what it's supposed to do. And like I think that's a big thing with Yu-Gi-Oh these days, is like you just have to trust that your deck's gonna do what it's supposed to do. Of course, if you get stopped 90% of the time, you're gonna have a bunch of losses. But overall, I think the deck's pretty cool, and I wanted to show it to you before I unsleeve it. Because I'm thinking of maybe trying out something new for a while. But I did say that it was going to be a deck that I was going to trust and spend a lot of time with, because it's a deck that I really love and I'm really used to. So here we go. Here comes the deck profile. It might seem pretty standard, but as we go on, you'll see there's a whole bunch of tweaks left. So there we go. You can already see what the first card is. So, yep. It is playing some sort of invoked engine. So we've got 3 Alistair, the 1 Terraforming, the 3 Meltdown, and the 2 Invocation for the invoked engine, which is pretty standard. Not much to say there, to be honest. It is an invoked engine. The only thing that I would maybe cut is, like, I don't know if Terraforming is particularly great in this specific build, because you'll see just how much stuff is going on. So I'm just gonna just do that for a sec. So you'll see there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this build. So we've got our dogmatic engine. So we've got 2 Ecclesia, 1 Fleur-de-Lis, and 1 Maximus. So Maximus is actually really good. It very rarely comes up, and you'll see like there's a reason why I play it otherwise. Otherwise, it doesn't really come up that much, but when it does, it's just really, really good with the with the Schism package. So that's really good. So very small engine there, and then obviously top that off with the 3 Nadir Servant, the 1 Punishment, and then the 1 Schism. I class Schism as part of the Dogmatic engine in this case, because like that's basically what you're using it for. It's the play where you go Maximus and you dump 2 to set up Schism. There are obviously scenarios where you can set up Schism outside of Maximus, but in terms of like the traditional combo at the moment, which I'll show a little bit later in the video, you need to kind of resolve the Maximus and get the extra cards engraved. So we'll see that in a second. So we already have 2 engines. So we've got we have invoked Dogmatica, and then we just decided to add Eldritch to that. 2 Golden Lord, 2 Outland, 3 Sanguine, 3 Conch, and 2 Quakera. So pretty standard there. And then you see some more spice. It's just a deck full of engines essentially. Maybe that's why I haven't been doing particularly well. It's not that, to be fair. Most of the time it's drawing bricks in a 45 card deck. This is a 45 card deck, by the way. So pretty standard. One thing that I would probably change, and that gets sided out virtually every game, is the 2 Cursed Outland. They're already good game 1 because you want access to your engines, but game 2 and 3, like, you just have so much more stuff in the side deck. You'll see, like, the cool thing about this deck is there's a lot of space to slide in stuff for going second. So I have a very going second focused side deck. So we have 3 engines. We have invoked, Dogmatica Eldritch, along with, because why not, the Red Eyes Fusion engine. That's pretty standard. With actually not pretty standard. The reason why a lot of people have cut this in general, I think, outside of road decks, is because you just always draw. You just always draw the gold. You do. It happens. I don't know why. They just love your hand. But it was a 3-card engine, and I'm running 45 cards. So the argument was that the math theoretically should be there, that you don't open it like all the time, but it just happens. Like, I run 3 bricks in this deck in terms of 3 normal monsters, and I draw them all the time. So that's a little annoying. And then we've got 3 Ash, because Ash is good. And then we have the Gamma package. The Gamma package here is important because you want like a lot of the time, like, your pivotal spells to resolve. So you want, for example, Red Eye Fusion potentially to resolve, or you want Meltdown to resolve. So they are there to protect the Ash against your spells. How well it works is another story entirely, to be honest. But it is a good hand trap for going first in this instance. And you have a lot of stuff in your side to accommodate it. There were a couple times where I had live Gammas in my turn. But the fact that Gamma can get Ashed as well is a little bit annoying, I'm not going to lie. So there's the hand traps. And then we just got some stuff to round it off. This is a kind of spicy stuff. So we've got 3 Magician Souls. Magician Souls is just busted in this kind of deck, I think, because your Meltdowns are free Souls targets, basically. All the Eldritch traps and even the Cursed Eldlands, they're all really good targets for Souls. And Souls is also a solid extender for when your Alistair gets negated, so you can make Verte, which is the same scenario with sometimes with Ecclesia and Fleur de Lis. If you draw those, is the cool thing about this deck is that going first, everything goes right. You kind of have a couple of lines that you can go down. The one line is the window line, obviously, and then the other line is the fact that you can open Mekaba and Dragoon really easily, as long as you kind of bait out whatever ashes and stuff. Ideally, doesn't always happen, and sometimes the Verte gets interrupted. But there you go. But anyway, this card is absolutely nuts. I love it. I wouldn't cut it going first in this specific deck at all. I think it does too much for the deck in terms of digging for your engines, and with that said, that's the same reason for the Pot of Prosperities. The thing with pots in this deck is that I don't necessarily feel like the extra deck can necessarily deal with them, but they do dig. The important thing is they do dig for your engine, so you can banish a lot of the more generic stuff, which I'll show you in a second, to try to get access to other parts of your engine, because generally you tend to open at least one of the 4 engines in this deck, and often 2, but sometimes the pot just gets you access to the second one. So a lot of the time you'll have the pot, and the pot will get you access to the part of the Dogmatica engine or the part of the Invoked engine to give you full board, which is 2 negates, which is pretty solid, I think. Look, it's not Dragonlink, but I think it's pretty cool. So there you go. That's the main deck. Like I said, I love this deck. I think it does really well. It does what it's supposed to do really well. I have no real qualms about it. There's nothing I would necessarily change, especially because a lot of the things that I would change, so maybe cutting things like Outland, potentially, maybe thinking about cutting Souls, things like that. Those things are good for the side deck. So I like it. So that is my trusty Eldritch Invoked Dogmatica Dragoon deck. And like I said, it does really well. In the extravaganza this last weekend, my biggest problem was just breaking. I probably opened a normal monster every single game, pretty much, and that was obviously problematic. And in terms of the amount of cards I run, like, I know the more cards you run, the potentially more bricky your deck can be, but this is only 45 cards, so statistically you shouldn't be drawing your bricks that often, and you should be drawing usable stuff, which for the most part you kind of do, but like The one big problem that this deck potentially has in this specific format is that I'm only running essentially 6 hand traps and 45 cards, which is maybe not the most adequate amount to be running. So anyway, that's main deck. Extra deck, also sorted in kind of engines. So we've got the Invoked engine, we got Megaba and Purgatrio. So I opted to run Purgatrio over Agoides because there are lots of scenarios with like Prankids where they have massive boards. So if you can make Purgatrio and like start running over all the weedy little Prankids, you can get in a lot of damage, which is important against Prankids. Also, side note, I fucking hate Prankids in remote duel setups. There's just something about the way remote duels work, even though there's a little bit more time to account for scenarios with lag or whatever. It's just, there's something more overwhelming about playing Prankids for some reason in a remote duel format. So yeah, Invoked engine. So we got the 2 Megabird, the 1 Purgatrio, and then the 1 Artemis. Artemis is also really good in this deck because it works with your other spellcasters. You'll see there's a spicy tech in a little bit that deals with spellcasters because this deck is so spellcaster heavy. And then we have Titanic Lad. So this is kind of the 1 Dogmatica engine card, I guess. And then we have the Shadals. So Apkalone, Construct, and Winder. Normally it would just be Apkalone and Winder, but because of the way the deck now works with Artemis, because you need to banish Artemis and you don't go Almirage into Secure Gardener anymore, you don't have the extra monster for Maximus normally on the summon, so you'll normally have to banish Apkalone, which means when you're dumping for Maximus's effect, you need to dump Titanic Lad and Construct, which is fine because it allows you to then dump the Schism and then get it back with Construct when you dump Maximus, so that's generally fine. So yeah, Shadal stuff. Then obviously we have the Dragoon package, so Verte and Dragoon. There's not much to say about this. Like, by and large, I just think incorporating Dragoon into decks that can use Dragoon is important and useful because Dragoon just wins games. However, and this is, I guess, a positive, is that I don't necessarily see it getting hit anytime soon because right now I don't think Dragoon is super powerful. Like, lots of main decks have outs to it. You have stuff like Zeus and things like that have outs to it. So I think it's fine in the format. And then dump targets for Thingy, we have Intus and then Omega. Omega is useful because, like, if your Maximus survives, you can dump Intus and Omega off the second Maximus activation, and that's basically free. You get a free pop, and then you literally just shuffle them both back into extra deck immediately. And then the Omega is also there to make off a your turn activation of Gamma. Don't sleep on this if you can include it because you have extra deck space. It's too good not to include, I think. So there you go. And then we have some generic links. We've got BLS link because of Eldritch. Doesn't come up that often, but it is very good. So that's why it's there. And then my spicy tech, we've got a Selene and an access code. Reason for this is because the majority of the monsters that you have are spellcasters. And this is 2+ with the spellcaster. So for example, if your Verte survives the turn, you can summon Alistair, and then you can make Selene summon back the Alistair, and you can make Access Code Talker along with all the other shenanigans. So it's really, really solid in that regard. That's if the Verte survives. Otherwise, because Selene is just 2+ monsters, you can also use the Eldritch traps for that, and then because this basically will revive the Alistair as long as there's enough enough spells in play. It makes access code. The access code is not going to pop a bajillion things, but that's fine. So yeah, there you go. Then we have obviously the BLS, and then finally side deck. Not much to say about the extra. The extra in this build is really, really cramped, though. I will admit that much. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things about playing this deck. So yeah, there you go. And then we have my side. Here we go. Missing the one card. And then we have my side. Side is obviously pretty standard based on the meta. I decided to kind of be quite scattershot, so I've got 2 Nibiru, 2 Droll, and 2 Lancia. I like Lancia, but it's just never come up. Like, I've never drawn it. But Nibiru are already good. I would probably just play 3 of each of these at the moment, if I'm being honest. And then 2 Dark Ruler. So I really scattershotted a lot of stuff in this side deck. And the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. So I think this is fine. I'd like to play a 3rd Dark Ruler. So maybe cut Lancias and run Dark Rulers instead. I don't know. And then triple evenly matched. This was interesting. A lot of the time I would draw evenly matched with Nibiru, which obviously clashes significantly. But I think a lot of people are still underestimating the power of evenly matched in a format like this. Like, big boards are still being made. Evenly matched is the one thing that, by and large, if you're going second, you can put in against almost every single matchup, and like it will do something. So I really like evenly matched. I wouldn't cut those. Like I said, the only thing that I think has been a little bit subpar is maybe the Lancias, just because I haven't seen them. And then Shrivel Ice Dragon's Prison as well. This is like the only card in my side deck for going first, pretty much. Everything else is essentially for going second. And I usually have about 8 spots just for going second in terms of the siding. So usually those 8 spots are like triple evenly, maybe Dark Rulers, and then like 2 of the, and then 4 of like the 6 hand traps usually. So like I will make space for 8 and 9 cards. So it's a pretty heavy side. And then obviously if you're going against backer heavy stuff, you put in like the evenlies and like the Feather Duster and like, I don't know, it's backer stuff. So maybe like Rolls, for example. So you can have like a reasonably light siding side as well. But like I said, I don't regret even these one bit. And then the Ice Dragon Prisons are for going first specifically. This is just to give you more powerful traps for going first. Going first siding is a lot more difficult. Often the stuff that gets signed out there is like maybe Curse Outlands and like a Quackera or something pretty basic to put in the Ice Dragon Prisons, because they're obviously not amazing against every single matchup. They can be kind of dead at times, even though they are incredible cards and like are well worth what the market wants for them at the moment. So yeah. So that is my side. Like I said, overall, this deck hasn't necessarily been doing amazingly well for me, but I think it's a really interesting concept, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. I think somebody can kind of tweak it or get inspired by it in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's my Outlich, Invoked, Dogmatica, Dragoon, Shaddoll deck profile. Yeah, I think it went really well. I still like playing the deck a lot. My frustration with it has come more from the fact that like it doesn't necessarily run if you can't get off the ground, and like that's always I think one of the problems with Invoked as an engine in general. Or Dogmatica, or like the problem with a lot of these engines is they're very small engines by themselves, so they don't necessarily do a ton of stuff by themselves. And that's why you need to kind of open 2 engines to like see an interesting board that can actually do stuff and like run enough interruptions and stuff. But if you can run enough interruptions and stuff, then it's probably one of the best decks of the format, I think. But obviously the problem is the risk of running multiple engines. You might not necessarily see everything from a single engine. And I think, like I said, I just got a little bit unlucky in some instances over the weekend. But like I said, it performed pretty admirably at locals. I almost went 3-1 in the first locals back, pretty much, that I played. So I was pretty happy with that. And like I said, there's nothing about this deck that I would necessarily massively change. I think it's really cool. So I hope that's inspired some people. Play Dragoon, because Dragoon is OP. And I will see you guys next time. I am going to be playing around with some new ideas. I'll maybe share a deck profile for that sometime soon. And I will see you guys then. Hope you enjoyed this deck profile, and I will see you guys next time.